Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief. My old pal, Trever Gray. Trevor, how are you?
Chris, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I wanted to bring you on. We got some stuff to discuss. You're helping me with some things, and I want to share some of what we've been working on. But before we get that, just want to establish what kind of person you are, Trevor. You're so confident in how you look that you're willing to get on a video Zoom that's filming you at an upward angle. I can't. Right? I mean, I could never do that. I actually have my computer stacked on. Oh my God, don't do that. It makes me feel too bad. I have mine stacked on books, so that it at least a little bit points down at me.
Yeah. That's how you're supposed to, but I didn't have time to set up because you made me get up at the crack of dawn here to record.
Okay.
This.
So let's talk about that first off, because there's a lot of stuff you're helping me with. And I think you got a lot of valuable advice. Some of it is, stuff people can use, and some of it is less useful, I would say, to other people. So let's get right into the sleep thing. I asked you, how early can you do this podcast? And you said 9 a.m. Pacific Coast time. And I basically had a heart attack because I went 9 a.m. What is going on? And you explained to me, well, I don't usually go to bed until about midnight. I won't talk over you too much. Tell me why that's your normal schedule.
So every human, every biological being, every cell has its own circadian rhythm. Yeah. And that is our pre-programmed time that not only when we sleep, but peak glucose levels, peak lipid levels, when our body temperature fluctuates throughout the day. And then how the brain accepts light or a lack of light when we start to power down, and melatonin secretion from the hormone that helps us to begin the sleep process. And so we're all shifted at different parts of the day. And apparently that evolved when we were in, small groups and tribes, and someone had to watch out for the tribe to make sure it wasn't attacked.
Somebody had to do the night watch, right?
Someone had to do the night watch, and over eons, some of us, our genetic makeup said, okay, you've been staying up, your genealogy has been staying up for so long that we're going to make it, that's your normal now. So you're not going to go to bed until midnight or 1 or 2 a.m. until those super morning people come in to watch the group at 2 or 3 a.m. And then those super morning people can watch the group, and then you can go to bed. That's one of the theories on how these different sleep times happen with everyone.
So how did you figure that out? How did you figure out what your rhythm is?
I've always been this way. My parents struggled since day one to wake me up. I was actually a baby that would sleep in. Most babies wake up really early.
Yeah.
I would sleep in. I would take naps. I've been a napper all my life, and my genetic makeup just calls for lots of sleep.
Okay. So what would you suggest for me? And I'm using this as an intro, and then eventually in a minute, everybody's listening to this, I'll back up and sort of talk about where we're going here. But okay, I'm a dad. I don't really, can't really control when I wake up, in effect. What practical advice would you have because there's tons of people who are probably listening to this who goes I would love to go to bed at midnight and wake up at 9 a.m. every day. It just doesn't work with my daily schedule. What can you do to mitigate that?
Nothing. You're SOL.
You are screwed. I have it here officially from Trevor. You're screwed.
If you have kids, it's really difficult. And but there are a couple things you could do. One is take a nap. Whenever you get a chance to take a nap, go ahead and take it. Even 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's really beneficial. It helps clear out the brain. Keep regular bedtimes. Try not to shift more than an hour when you go to bed or when you wake up. So if you are a night owl and you are going to bed earlier on the weekday, try to keep that same time going to bed on the weekend. But sometimes you just got to get some extra sleep, and you should take that too. But try to keep regular bedtimes. Okay. The expert in this area is Dr. Matt Walker. And he's on a number of podcasts and YouTube videos, but check out Dr. Matt Walker if you want to improve your sleep hygiene.
Okay. Yeah, well, always an area people who know me know has always sort of been an area I've struggled with is sleep. In particular, it's been a little bit screwy because of the schedule I'm on right now, going to and from different areas, sleeping in different areas, and coaching late at night. So speaking of that schedule, one of the things I've been doing, people who listen know that I have this 90-minute commute to and from work, and I typically don't go down and back on the same day. But I try to call people up and talk to them, to pass the time while I'm bombing down the New Jersey Turnpike. And Trever, you're one of those people. And I would say, a lot of times we've just been talking about whatever, swimming wise, gossiping about other swim coaches, gossiping about jobs, normal stuff. But maybe a couple of months ago, you and I were talking, I was driving home, and you just sort of, asked like, how are you doing? And I said, well, actually, I feel like completely awful physically. Like I just feel terrible. One thing led to another, and all of a sudden you've become my primary source, or I guess maybe not primary, a big source of advice for me on this. And just to summarize some of this stuff for people that are listening, because I think there's a lot of people who are on the same boat. I probably entering into the pandemic, I was a little bit over where I would like to be weight-wise and just sort of body composition-wise. I was not fitting into my pants, that sort of thing. Entering the pandemic, I gained weight like many people. In fact, I saw actually a study, a big many thousand kids study they did in Denmark on 8th graders, and just how much on average they gained over 1 year of the pandemic. And of course, like kids at that age will naturally grow, first of all, like that they are growing, but it was like 6 kilograms. Like it is a lot when you think about how big everyone was. So I gained a bunch of weight, and I was trying to improve some of that. I was running into a lot of roadblocks. I was running into roadblocks in terms of working out, was struggling to sort of maintain a good energy level, trying to work out, was struggling to eat a good diet or sort of manage my caloric intake at an appropriate level. And one thing that is related to all of this is, and I'll just speak from the psychological perspective, you can't, there's physiology at play here, there's psychology at play. You can't extract one from another. But I will say, general advice for people, like when you're struggling, enlist some other people to help you. It will help a lot. And so now we're at a stage where you've been helping me, and you've said some stuff to me that has really helped me a lot. And I've also had many opportunities to tell you how much I hate you, because simultaneous to this moment where I'm struggling, you've basically just been like, oh yeah, I started applying all my knowledge about how to build muscle in the gym, and I just started showing up and doing X, Y, and Z, and putting on lean muscle mass. And before we get into any of this, I just want to make one more caveat, and that is, I've been talking for a long time straight here. I have referenced the More Plates, More Dates YouTube channel, which I am a fan of. They do discuss performance enhancing drug use on that. I do not use performance enhancing drugs because I'm a coach of young athletes, and I think that would be inappropriate. As far as I know, you do not either, right, Trever? Okay, so we're not going to be discussing any of that. I do enjoy listening to that for informational purposes, but there's going to be no information about that here. Talk about some of the stuff before we get into my stuff, because I've just talked for a long time. Talk about some of the stuff that you've applied here during the pandemic in your own sort of personal training regimen.
Well, I think like everyone, the first few months of the pandemic was pretty bleak. All the pools shut down, at least up here they did. All the gyms shut down. And so we were left with, we got to make this up. And fortunately, we could go outside. I have an area where I can go outside and still run or walk. But then I actually, like a lot of people, I think Jacob Pedley do a workout. I'm like, all right, it's time to do some workouts here. And I ordered a little bit of equipment, and all that was selling out. And so I was able to get some weights and just start making up just do something. Right. And that really helped. And of course, there were days where I don't want to do any of this. Like we're in a pandemic. I don't want to work out, but you just got to do it. You just got to force yourself to do it. I'm like, okay, let's just do 10 minutes. 10 minutes is better than 0 minutes.
Right.
And we're going to apply that later. This 10-minute or 15-minute principle is better than 0 minutes a little bit later.
Well, I do think go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say that this is a big point. I do want to highlight. I'm glad we're going to return to it later. It's like, I think especially as swimmers, sometimes we're used to training so hard that we view like a little bit of training as just like useless. Like it's like total, like just not worth it, when you're right. It is infinitely more than nothing. So it is valuable. Go on.
Well, think about it this way. If you woke up in the morning and did 5 push-ups, that is nothing. But if you did that every day for a year, all of a sudden you have 1,500, 1,600 push-ups done in the course of a year. And that is something.
Right.
Yeah. You would have this massive chest and you would be pretty ripped. And
is that a promise?
You're gonna hate me more. No, it's not a promise.
Okay, got it.
Anyway, so for those listeners that don't know, I am not a registered dietitian, so I cannot legally give nutrition advice. But I am a professor of nutrition at community college here in the Northwest, and so I do know a lot, and so I feel comfortable helping you out.
Right.
We're
just friends. We're talking about stuff.
We're talking about stuff that you could try and then see if it works for you. So during last few months, I thought, well, I should put all this nutrition information to use and see if I can actually, for me, gain weight, gain muscle over the course of months and see what happens. And so, I'm at a weight now that I've never been before. And it does feel different, especially when I go for a run. I could feel that heaviness, but I could feel it in the water as well.
Right.
And it's definitely a different feeling, but I also can feel the strength gains. Yeah. And so it's also an exciting feeling. It's just pretty fun.
So give me a couple things you've changed over the last few months.
I have increased my protein intake for sure I'm taking 2.2 grams per kilogram body weight. The max is around 2.4-ish. Yeah, there's some studies that go higher, but for reference, for sedentary people should get 0.8 grams per kilogram body weight per day.
Okay.
And then athletes ramp it up to about 2.4, depending on how many hours a week you train or how many hours a day you train. Are you doing heavy lifting? That's a consideration as well. But you definitely have to bring in more protein. In fact, you have to bring in more of everything, because one of the master signalers of protein or of protein synthesis and muscle growth is this mTOR pathway. And this signaler,
which we've discussed on a podcast before, where we talked about whether you should lift in the morning or lift in the evening or when you should swim around, all that stuff.
Right,
People
exactly.
Go back and look for that podcast. But yes, it's mTOR.
This mTOR pathway, it's one of the master signalers to signal for growth. And mTOR kind of goes, hey, I have everything I need here. I have all the nutritional support. Let's go ahead and build some muscle here. And then it enacts a bunch of different pathways for that to happen. And so not only do you have to have adequate protein, but you have to have adequate sugar and fat and all the vitamins and minerals. And so you actually have to eat a lot. And that's, for me, it's been a little bit of a challenge I got to force feed myself a little bit. And that's been difficult.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I hate you.
Yeah,
because I don't have that force feeding problem. I in fact, at certain points throughout this, I went like, oh God, I feel so awful. I can't do this. Particularly when I did a little bit of calorie restriction. One of the first things you helped me do is in regards to nutrients and stuff. And I did this I guess it would probably be now 5 weeks ago. You had me track a whole week of eating on this free app called Chronometer. And I guess as I've done more research into this, you didn't give me a lot of background. You just said, track it in a Chronometer, right? And you didn't explain that much. So I sort of said on my own, like, why is he having me do this? I guess it's a little bit unique in that how comprehensive it is in terms of how it tracks both macronutrients and micronutrients in your diet. And it was really interesting to me because tracking a full week of eating and then you can get into the app and see a summary of it. I could see that like Okay, in terms of caloric intake, I was right around a range that would be appropriate for somebody of my body weight and size, and I was getting the proper amount of macronutrients and all this stuff. But some of the micronutrient stuff, I went, oh God, like I am incredibly deficient in X and Y and Z, and I think I never would have discovered that had I said it. Another piece of advice you got from me is you got me to buy an expensive multivitamin, which I've at several points in my life, I have tried multivitamins, and I've never stuck with one, even though I've been given this piece of advice quite a bit. And I would say one of the reasons is I had in the back of my mind this some teacher or professor at some point in my life going like, hey, when you take a multivitamin, like look for your fluorescent pee, half an hour later. That's you just peeing out all the stuff that you didn't absorb. And like, I always noticed that when I took a multivitamin. So I thought, is this like a total waste of time?
Yep.
It turns out there is something to what kind of multivitamin you're taking rather than just take any multivitamin. And you turned me on. We're not going to do a free ad for whoever it is. But you turned me on to a multivitamin that was good in terms of absorption. And I do think that has made a little bit of a difference. How did you figure out like what's a good multivitamin and what's not?
Actually decades of research, and really also consumer labs. It's a subscription service, but I was just telling my class this last night that if you take a supplement, you have to do your homework for the brand, for how much absorption your body can handle with a particular brand, and then when to take it, how much to take it, how many months do you take this for. And you can't just take a supplement and say, oh, let's see what happens. You have to be educated by it, and you have to be educated for it. And unfortunately, there's so much information out there that it's easy to get confused. And so, you have to do your homework in order to take a supplement.
Yeah. To go back to the discussion of protein, when you said, you gave a range there, but just to sort of give like a real world example to people listening, I'm around 90 kilograms. So in body weight. So if I were to, when you say normal sedentary, like basic protein intake need, if I were to do 0.8 grams per kilogram, we're talking around 75 to 80
72
kilograms. Yeah. Okay. Of protein per day. And if we get up to like 2.4 times my body weight in kilograms, on the high end, we're talking.
Well, let's just use easy math. So like 1 gram. Yeah, 1 gram per kilogram body weight, you're 90. That would mean you need 90 grams per day. But you're pretty active, and you're working out, and you're swimming, and you're doing kickboxing, I think, right?
Yep, and lifting weights.
So you're pretty active. So for easy math purposes, let's bump that up to 2 grams per kilogram body weight. You probably need at least 150 to maybe up to 180 grams of protein per week.
Okay.
Now, are you even getting that? That's why you start tracking your diet for 7 days to see if you're getting that. And if you're not, then you either change your macronutrient distribution, saying, oh, I need more protein, or if animal products are not something that you take,
your jam,
maybe you should consider a protein supplement.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any trouble in the proteins. I feel like I would eat meat every meal, all day, every day. So
if you could, yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't. I first off, the number one thing I was not deficient in when I looked at my profile on Chronometer was protein. That was not an issue. If anything, I guess I wasn't quite hitting the target with carbs. I've always felt like personally, like I had like a sensitivity to carbs. I fooled around. People who listen to this know that I fooled around with a keto diet at some point. I don't think that I've lost faith in the keto diet, and I know you have a little bit too. I think that it maybe works better for me when I have a very low activity level versus like when I am pretty active. Like it just doesn't seem to really satiate me in the same way. Is there something to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, don't tell the screaming Viking that
Yeah.
keto is not the healthiest diet out there. Yeah.
Whisper this part. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, foods have different satiation values or fullness values. And if you are experiencing like keto, man, I am not getting satisfied with this meal. It's probably because you're not getting what your body needs. And it's going, hey, I'm not getting everything I need. So person, you keep eating until I get what I need. I'm going to make you keep eating. And then you tend to overeat.
What are some other things you've tried besides increasing your protein intake?
A little bit of intermittent fasting.
Okay.
Now that is complex, and I know you've tried it a little bit. You also don't like it.
I really don't like it. I think, again, all this stuff works as a system. So it's really interesting. I think, and you and I have talked about this before, is you have to understand the big picture of things before, like there's all sorts of useful tools out there. I think we had a great conversation even when we talked about Madison Cox and supplementation and that kind of stuff. Like if you just sort of understand like, okay, hey, X will help me and in isolation, and you don't understand the big picture of things. Like I'm somebody who, for whatever reason, when I've tried intermittent fasting, when I get to break that fast, like I just go ham. And sometimes it's on delay, so sometimes it's not like right when I get to break it, but later that day, like I'll find myself, for instance, what I did was I tried to do a continuous 16-8. So 16 hours off from eating, 8 hours on from eating. And what I found was, so I'd wake up and I'd go until 12 o'clock noon. Before eating it. Yeah, noon before eating anything. And then I'd eat, really ended up probably being between noon and 6:30 at night. And so it was more like 18-6 than 16-8. And I'd find like post-dinner, post-bed, I just wanted to gorge. I wanted to take that meal I skipped in the morning and put it in at night. Like I had a really, really strong urge and I kept on doing it. And so it was actually worse off than not doing it. But what has worked for you in terms of fasting?
Well, that's a good point. If something's not working for you, then you should abandon it. Now, there's a certain point where even you recently because we decided you have to go on some caloric restriction.
Yeah.
After you did the chronometer and you said, okay, I'm eating too many calories. We need to back off by a couple hundred calories.
Yeah.
The first few days you hated that.
I really hated it.
You hated it. And I said, keep it up for a few more days. And then you did experience a plateau. And now, how do you feel?
Yeah. Now I feel it's so much easier, but it took me like probably 3 weeks to flip that over.
And the point is with time restricted feeding or the 18-6 is that if you are doing something and you give it a good shot and it's still not working, then be ready to abandon it and try something else or do a modification of the time restricted feeding, meaning maybe I should do it once a week or twice a week and see how it goes and not every day.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that, what do you do in terms of fasting? Like how do you plan it out?
So I do at least a 12-hour fast and sometimes 14. And then once a week, I'll probably do an 18-hour fast. And the point of that is to liberate some of the fat cells because after a certain amount of hours, your body will stop relying on the previous night's meal, glucose, and start to liberate more fats for fuel so that ATP production can keep going. And so that's why I do that. But really, I like the feel of it. I like the feeling of not eating for at least 12 hours, and I just feel better from it instead of eating all the time or waking up and eating right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on a normal day, it looks for you like when do you eat dinner?
So I'll stop eating around 9, which is too late. But with my circadian rhythm, I've said, well, that's okay. Good. And then I won't eat until 9, probably more like 10 and sometimes 11 o'clock the next morning. Okay. And I can do that right now because we are still teaching online. But I do remember one quarter where I went in early to teach, and then I'd come home and because I lived nearby and eat breakfast and then go back to school, or I'd bring my breakfast with me. And I still wouldn't eat until 10 or so.
Yeah.
So the point for the listener is if you have never heard of time-restricted feeding or intermittent fasting, check that out. There's a lot of good apps out there and resources available. There does seem to be some health benefits of waiting to eat, and it also gives your digestive system time to pause and relax, and it's not constantly taking in nutrients in a 24-hour period. So there's some definite benefits to it, and then there's lots of different ways to do it as well. And you don't have to do it every day like you discovered. You could do it maybe once a week or something. And then, experiment with it and see if it's something that might be beneficial for you.
Right. Yeah, I have a tendency to take things to the extreme sometimes, which I'm finding as I get older in life is not a great strategy.
No.
I think if I've learned anything from this time period, it's how to manage better. Like, I have a tendency to go like, oh, I got to get in better shape. And then I commit to working out. I commit so hard that I kind of crash and burn and get caught almost in like a negative feedback loop with working out where I'm just exhausted, but I'm like, I got to keep going because like I'm not seeing the results of whatever it is I'm trying to do. And so I'm finding less and less applicability for that kind of stuff.
Well, my friend in Wisconsin does the same. He just is all in, and he could do it for about 3 months, and then his body just goes, I can't handle this. And he gets injured or demotivated, and he quits for 18 months, and then he gets out of shape. And he's done that a few cycles now. And so this time I'm like, dude, you got to really ease into it and go as slow and easy and gentle on your body as you can.
Right. I mean, so like to give an example, we talked about the calorie restriction stuff, just so people understand what exactly I did. I was tracking, and I was averaging about 2,500 calories a day.
Which is totally normal.
Which is totally normal. People that, people know the nutrition label on the back says 2,000 calories a day diet. Obviously, that's for an average person. I'm bigger than an average person, so 2,500 calories is not an unreasonable amount for somebody with my body size. And what we tried to do in terms of restriction was I went down from 2,100 to 2,200. And I definitely felt the difference. Don't get me wrong. So I almost felt at the beginning that it was too extreme. Then I sort of quickly settled into it, and it was probably the appropriate amount. It's actually, I don't know whether to say it's a moderate amount of restriction or a little bit of restriction or a lot of restriction. I mean, how would you term it?
I would say this is because it's only 200 calories, this is a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a small amount. And some people feel it and some people don't.
Yeah.
And you did, and that's totally normal. But yeah, over the course of months, you should see, and I think you are seeing some improvement in your body composition.
What is your workout routine look like, Trever?
So I swim with a friend like 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes 5. And we are US RPT based. We do a lot of that, but also some other sets as well to mix it up. And then to take advantage of that podcast that we talked about, to take advantage of the metabolic profile post-workout, I will lift in the evening anywhere from 30 minutes to sometimes an hour if I have time.
Okay.
And then let that stimulus from the weights take effect overnight.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm timing everything out.
So you're lifting specifically basically before bed because you're not before bed, but like before.
It's at least 5 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. But later in the day. And then the idea is like you're sort of primed for recovery in the time period directly following that.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so do you lift also 3 to 4 to 5 times a week?
I'm lifting like Yeah, 3 to 4, and then I do some yoga, 1 to 2, and then I'll go on a long walk or jog once a week as well.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So this is a lot. Just listening to it.
But I don't have kids, so I have time for that.
What would you say if somebody was like, like me, you're in a swim coach, you're working weird hours, you're, because again, I'm going to actually put a disclaimer on the front of this because there are a few kids on the team that may listen to this. This is advice for
coaches.
Adults. This is like coach. We're talking to coaches right now. We actually have a nutritionist on staff on our team that works with the kids.
Nice.
So, and I think she gives really, really great advice. I listened to some of the stuff that she has talked with them about. So, what would you say, like, if I had a very limited amount of time, what would be sort of the minimum efficacious dose, if we use some other terminology, of working out, and what kinds of working out would you do if you're a 37-year-old swim coach?
Not only what to work out, but what time. Timing is really important.
Okay.
So here's my advice. Number one, how do you lose fat? Because what we're talking about is losing fat.
Yeah.
Gaining muscles, we talked about that a tiny bit, but when people say I want to lose weight, they're not saying I want to lose muscle, they're saying I want to lose fat. So how is it that we lose fat? And that is through hormones. Primarily, we liberate a fat cell through epinephrine and norepinephrine, so some of our adrenal hormones. So how do we raise those up? One of the best ways is to wake up in the morning and go out for a 10-minute, even 15-minute walk, jog, do some body weight exercises, push-ups. So the minimum dose to raise adrenaline levels is about 10 minutes in the morning.
Okay.
Now, the other benefit with getting up and working out right away is that you drain the previous night's energy stores that you ate from dinner. So you're reducing those. So that when you do eat breakfast, the body is taking that breakfast material and replacing it. So if you didn't work out, if you woke up right away and you ate, and your muscle stores are already filled with the previous night's meal, where is all that food going to go? It's going to be turned into fat. So it makes sense to wake up, let's drain what the previous night's food intake was so that when we eat breakfast and replace that.
So sorry, what you're saying is if you do nothing else, if you just woke up and did a little bit, 10 minutes of exercise.
10 minutes, yep.
Every day.
Yep.
That would make a difference.
That would make a huge difference because post-workout, post 10, 15 minutes, you also get a raise in those hormones that liberate fat for hours afterwards, like up to 4 hours afterwards. So that's increasing your resting metabolic rate.
Oh, wow.
So that you continue to liberate that fat. Now, there's some tricks you could do to enhance that even further. One, coffee or tea. So caffeine has been known to upregulate lipid synthesis, so the use of fats as fuel. So wake up, and so has water, actually. Just 2 cups of water has also been shown to raise the adrenaline hormones to liberate fat. So wake up, drink some water, drink some coffee or tea, go do your 10, 15, 20-minute workout, come back, eat your breakfast, go about your day. Wow. That will go a long way.
Yeah. Hardcore supplements like coffee.
Coffee, but insulin is the primary driver of building. So putting on fat and putting in sugar into the body. So insulin is the main anabolic hormone that the body releases. If you drink your coffee with creamer, your body's going to release insulin to deal with the creamer. So the coffee or tea has to be without any milk products, including any hemp or almond. And yeah, you're shaking your head because you hated that.
I can't do that.
You can't do it. You can't drink your coffee black.
I can't. I'm not like one of those tough guys, who's like, oh, coffee black, with my really particular deep voice. I just can't quite seem to do it. But now you've made me feel eternally guilty about my coffee drinking habits, Trevor.
No. Even just drinking water before that 10-minute workout in the morning will go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out. I don't know how I can figure out the 10 or 15 minute workout in the morning too. Again, like, you know, I feel like I spent I wake up, I get that coffee. I try to get my children ready to leave. I guess when I'm, you know, away, when I'm down here, I guess I could just wake up and start walking around.
Could you wake up 10 minutes more earlier when you are at home with your kids and drink the coffee and get down and do 50 push-ups and then maybe 50 air squats? That would take 10 minutes right there. Right. You could probably do that.
I probably could do that instead of sitting on the couch
while
my kids are right there. It's
exactly.
I don't have any babies at home anymore, so it's I'd probably just be setting a good example for my kids if I did.
Exactly. Yeah. So see if you can incorporate that. Even do 5 minutes. Start off with 5 minutes, and I bet you soon you'll realize, like, okay, I could bump this up to 10 minutes.
Yeah. Another thing I probably have changed is because of the schedule that I have, you know, so I have I coach nights. It's forced me into a later rhythm of everything, which I actually think might be natural for me. I've never been particularly good at waking up early in the morning. And I do think I'm better at this, like coaching at night, than I was at coaching morning practice.
Sure.
But I drive down and I coach late at night on Mondays. And I have these Tuesdays and Thursdays where I'm essentially at work all day long. I work these mega Tuesdays and Thursdays. And what I found was too, that I was spending too much time sitting, you know? So I've started just like, I think people in my office think I'm a crazy person because I'm just always coming in and out of the building, especially now that it's nice outside. But, you know, after I just notice that I've been sitting for a while, I just get up and go and walk around in the parking lot and the hotel parking lots nearby, and just to move a little bit. And it's honestly, it's helped me get more work done too, because I started noticing like I was getting kind of like almost brain fog from just sitting for a long period of time, like where I just could not focus on what it is I had to do, and getting outside and moving a little bit tends to reset things, and I can sit down and be a little bit more focused when I get back. When
you're sitting, the blood starts pooling in the lower extremities, and it's much more difficult for blood to get back into the central circulation. And your brain, that brain fog is a real thing. Get up and start moving around.
Yeah. I think one thing you've helped me with too is, you know, I say primary source. I did go and go to my primary care physician because I was feeling so physically awful. She did not offer me a tremendous amount of helpful advice in this regard, which is why I've sort of had to go around and get some other opinions in the matter. One thing that she did was, you know, she just sort of looked at my height and weight and said, well, your BMI is pretty high, you're fat, so lose some weight, which I didn't think was terribly helpful advice in the context of all of this, because I think, you know, first off, anybody who's been an athlete knows that BMI figure can be wildly inaccurate in terms of like, if you're, I'm not saying like, oh, I'm so muscular that my BMI is high, you know, but like, I could be essentially healthy, but have a overweight BMI.
Sure.
And I had some blood drawn, looked at a bunch of stuff. I did find out I was vitamin D deficient. You said that's actually pretty common for people to be vitamin D deficient.
It is. So I have all my students do a diet tracker for the quarter, and they log in 7 days, and it's almost universal unless a student takes a supplement that they are vitamin D deficient. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think overall that was helpful. So I recommend that to people, at least, you want to rule out if you're really sort of feeling progressively bad and you have made some lifestyle changes. I mean, even prior to turning to you for help, I essentially stopped drinking alcohol. I had cleaned up my diet quite a bit in terms of adding in, grudgingly fruits and vegetables and all those natural good things you are supposed to eat.
Yep.
And still necessarily wasn't feeling that great. So it's been helpful to investigate some of that stuff because a lot of what you're talking about, like, it's really guesswork until you look at what's going on.
Well, think about it this way. Last night I thought about this. I'm like, how can I talk about an analogy that might help people, that you need to get data first on what you're eating in order to make meaningful changes there on out. And I think it would be analogous to someone submitting a 400 IM and no one taking their time. Right. What's your 100 fly split, 100 back split?
Yeah,
100 breath
you go,
split,
how was my
right?
fly? Well,
I don't know. I didn't take your split. I'm like, well, how do I know what I need to improve on? Right? It's like, it would be crazy not to take splits and saying, relationally, you need to work on your breaststroke because your breaststroke split is so much slower. Okay, let's take the next few months and work on your breaststroke. So that next time you swim the 400 IM, it's more in proportion and more in line with your other splits. Yep. Same thing with what are you eating? We need to know the data. So I encourage if and we know coaches aren't the healthiest. If you are looking to improve your health, one, start tracking what you eat and use that chronometer app, which can you put a link in it for people?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that they can start
Chrono, like CRONO meter.
Yeah, Chronometer, and it's available on iOS and Android. And just start tracking to see where you're currently at, and then you can start making meaningful changes based on that. The other app I really like is Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. And that's also a free app, and you can start tracking, because variety is so important in your diet, that you eat a large, wide range of foods. Dr. Greger helps you look at, did I get my cruciferous vegetables? Did I get my fruits? Did I get my beans today? Did I get my grains today? And it's easy to track and look at that and plug in what you ate so you could see how wide of a variety of diet you are consuming.
Oh man, that's another thing I don't like, just doing
variety. I'm still working on it. I haven't eaten eggplant in years, and I don't really know how to prepare eggplant. So I went to the store and got an eggplant and figured it out, and I like eggplant now.
Oh, good for you. I haven't gotten there yet. All right. To get off this topic entirely and put you on the spot with something you're completely unprepared for. What are you thinking about trials coming up here, the first wave at least in a week, and then we've got, the rest of it coming a little bit week later. Are you excited yet? Where are you at, Trever?
I'm very excited. Is anyone even going to watch the first wave? I mean, maybe we'll tune in.
I will. We have 2 swimmers from our team competing in the meet. So yes, I will watch it.
Cool.
But I understand it's not going to be entertaining unless you have a personal connection really to some people that are competing at this first one. Yeah.
So we're all looking forward to wave 2, and I think it's going to be so cutthroat. There are so many events that we have no idea who's going to make the team. And it's going to be really exciting. And there's going to be some major disappointments as well. Yeah. I mean, just look at Madison Cox. We just talked about her a little bit ago, that now she has the #1 world time, the 2 IM.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be really exciting that she has that now. And the women's backstrokes. And I mean, almost every single race is going to be incredibly exciting.
Yeah. I think it's even more unpredictable than usual because the pandemic has caused huge gaps in how much people have competed. Normally, you sort of have a full year of high level competition from people who are trying to make the Olympic team, and you can sort of see who is peaking. But you're right. Now we have a little bit more surprise. There's a lot of people who I think are likely, I don't think somebody who hasn't dropped a reasonably fast time within the last couple months is going to make the Olympic team.
Right.
I'm not saying that, but we have a little less data, I guess, than if we get back to our previous point. We have a little bit less data than we normally do to predict these things.
What I'm going to find interesting, and you could comment on this, is the psychological component of an extra year of training, because it seems like a lot of the people who had been in the sport for a while, how do you gather the energy necessary for an extra year of training when you know that they were going to stop swimming after 2020?
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, and Ella Easton retired. Some people can't. Some people cannot take an extra year of training. We saw like Ella Easton retired, and we've seen a lot of retirements.
Well, I think it's really hard. I mean, look, if you look at anybody, and we talk about this a lot in the office, and I think like my boss, Paul, makes a really good point about this. People do have a window. They have a window where they can really peak at a super, super elite level. Now, some people are able to make it a gigantic French door style, like massive window, right? And they are able to compete at a high level. But for most people, it's a relatively short period of time. And some people just like miss that window. I think, like they were in a great position 11 months ago, and now they're not quite in that, that they might be 95 out of 100 instead of 99 out of 100. And that's a difference for them. So like, I feel for those people. And I do think too, that there's this level of uncertainty. I think the Olympics are going to happen, just to be clear to everybody. But there's every day you're reading a news article about, are they going to cancel it? I do think that will weigh on some people as well, because, if you're a really like elite athlete, you're making huge sacrifices to be at that level. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And to feel like, the big competition might be pulled out from you again, it's got to challenge your motivation a lot. So I'd be really interested to see who can persevere through that.
Right. Okay. I got to know, I doubt Ryan Lochte listens to this podcast. So is he going to make the team?
You're asking me my opinion. Okay. This is good. Now you've turned the tables on the lightning round for me, because we are in this office, we are pro Gator Swim Club, pro UF contingent. I do not think that Ryan Lochte will make the Olympics.
I don't either. I want him to. I would love him to. Second place in that.
Okay, I'm going to put this right back on you. Would you want him to make it over Michael Andrew?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah. I would say
I'm a bigger Michael Andrew fan if I have to choose.
I got to go with the old
between my babies.
I got to go with the old guy.
You're older, so you're biased against these young. He'll be fine. He'll still be young in 4 years, right?
Okay.
3 years. 3 years.
Lochte gets first, Michael Andrew gets second, but at the Olympics it's switched.
So who's out then? You don't like Chase Kalish? Like, you think he's a bad swimmer?
I think he's a great swimmer, but I think if you look at his results last few years, he must be struggling to keep going.
Shane, you don't like Shane Casas as much as Eric Wyken?
I don't think his long course will transfer, or short course will transfer into long course.
Even though he's been like 52 low and 100 back long course?
That's right, yeah. Oh, well, I thought we were talking about 2 IM.
I know. I just wanted to counterpoint you and just make you.
I don't want to see more long course results out of Casas before. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Trever, it's been a pleasure talking about all this stuff with you. Thanks for changing my life, if ever so slightly. Thanks for your friendship and your advice, and I'll talk to you again soon.